made an interesting offer today. Bottle of champagne. How do we win it?
I offered a bottle of champagne to colleagues who were able to find a new argument around Ceta. We have a lot of colleagues that today again calls for postponing the votes, but as I know it's just a filibusters. All has been on the table for a long time. So therefore I'd like to call their bluff by saying if you manage to actually find a new argument in favor or against Ceta, I'll give you a bottle of champagne.
There have been a lot of concerns, a lot of public demonstrations against Ceta. Do you think those problems that have caused concern, the dispute settlement court, protection of environmental standards, etc., do you think those questions have been satisfactorily answered?
I think all of those questions have been answered once, twice, 3 times, 20 times. But just because questions have been answered hasn't meant that some of the critics actually want to listen to the answers. And that's where we stand. They are still spreading the same kind of myths and factoids that's been around all the time. Because honestly, the opposition to Ceta isn't about this trade agreement. It's an opposition towards globalization, towards the world we live in. And I'm one of the guys that actually believe the world we live in is probably a pretty good place and that we should try to move it forward, not backwards.
We've seen the inauguration of President Trump. He was pretty clear in his speech. He wants protectionism. What message should Europe be putting out at this time?
I think a large part of the world is actually looking to Europe right now and looking towards leadership because in times of global protectionism, we are the biggest market in the world, the biggest economy in the world, and we could actually take the lead. But sadly right now, due to all these protectionists that are trying to take the lead in Europe, we're not really able to shoulder our responsibility and take the lead when America steps back.
A British MEP from the Conservative group mentioned Ceta as a possible model for the UK post once it leaves the EU. What would you say? Would Sweden, as a Swedish MEP, would you welcome that sort of agreement with the UK?
I would hope for a lot more, and if I should be honest, I think that it would be a pretty okay agreement for the European Union, but it would be a tremendously bad agreement for the UK, considering the fact that even though this is the deepest and most comprehensive trade agreement the European Union has ever done with a third country, the one we have with Canada today, it is nowhere near the internal market and the free trade agreement the European Union is in itself. But I think that a lot of my British colleagues are about to realize that while starting these negotiations, and also the fact that this agreement, it's taken 7, 8, 9 years to negotiate, process, discuss, and we ain't there yet. And if we would give the message, or the British politicians give the message to the British business that they are up for 7, 8, 9 years of not knowing what kind of market they have and access to the European Union, the world's biggest economy, I think that message would be devastating for business in UK.
Finally, do you see this going through smoothly in February's plenary?
Yes, I do. I would actually take up a bet with anybody that would be willing to offer me a bottle of champagne on the fact that this agreement will be adopted, most likely in February, and it will probably be adopted with, 400 votes in favor and 250 against, somewhere around there. But there's a broad majority in this House. The only problem is, of course, the socialists, because the socialists are really split into on this issue, as they are on most of issues we have right now in the European Parliament and in Europe. Socialists are split in two.